Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, book proposal specialist, podcaster, obviously, and author of 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting and your goal guide. You can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people to dive into the topic. And this week we are talking about habits. Good, bad, love them, hate them. They're part of life. So why not utilize them to better get closer to achieving your goals? Yeah, that was a complete sentence. That's good. Okay, so you might be watching this live. You might be watching the replay. You may even be listening to us as the GoalChat podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. But no matter how you found us, we're so glad you're here. And I love how these panels come together. And I'm going to introduce people backwards. So Beth Ricanati and I have known each other for years because I was doing, I did a series on a Jewish bucket list years ago. And she was, I think you were like my second or third.
I think
you were my third. You were absolutely my third. You were absolutely correct. I am so glad I'm glad you know.
It was such a great experience.
It was, but this is, we kept in touch, and her book, Braided, came out. Now the Braided prescription is coming out, or came out depending on what day you're watching this or listening to this. And I said, we need to do a goal chat. And she said, why don't we do a habits? We were literally, okay, I don't know a lot of my guests in person, but Beth is one of those when we were out for a walk. And I'm like, what would be a great topic? Meanwhile, Lynda Monk, who is another Books That Save Lives author, who I've known since both of our books were at the other publisher. Anyway, we were at a Heart Wisdom panel. And by the way, spoiler alert, the Heart Wisdoms are also coming to the Marketing Podcast Network. But Lynda's like, Deb, we haven't hung out in a while. Can I be on your show? And I'm like, of course you can. Here we are. And then I met Katelyn Carey through Innovation Women. And we've been working together on her book. And I'm like, I think we were in the middle of our meeting. I'm like, GoalChat last week, my mixer. And I'm like, duh, you need to be part of the habits conversation. So we've got a doctor, Beth, we've got a nurse, Katelyn, and we've got a social worker, Lynda, in this conversation about habits. And it wasn't even intentional. It was just how the conversation came together. So anyway, I am thrilled that we get to talk about this because, come on, love them or hate them, habits are part of our lives. But when you can tap into the things that work, kind of like 52 Secrets, you do more of what works, get rid of what doesn't, then you are closer to living a better life, being more balanced or harmonized or whatever. Anyway, all you all know, other than, their degrees, is that my guests are awesome. So I would love for them to each take a moment to introduce themselves. And now we'll go alpha. So Katelyn, please share who you are and what is your specialty. Go.
All right. Let's see. I'm a mom of 2 teens, which makes it very appropriate that I study the science of stress and the science of communication. Been a nurse for a long time, mostly acute care, starting pediatric ICU, going to ER, running a new grad residency program, ending up in hospice. And so I also study the science of compassion. But built through all of there is geeking out on cognitive science and really just what makes us happier, healthier people.
I love that a friend of mine just use the sentence geeking out on cognitive science.
Am I in the right crowd? I hope I'm in the right crowd.
Yes.
You're absolutely in the right crowd. Well, and this is what makes these conversations so interesting because there's nothing off limits. Okay, gloom and doom is off limits. But other than that, in the body of knowledge, the people I know, I just find fascinating. But this is, again, why I love these conversations, because I get to bring together smart people who also happen to be my friends. So, yay. Lynda.
Hi.
Wait, let me, there you are. Okay.
Hi, it's great to be here together. As Deb mentioned, we are fellow authors. We were with a previous publisher where I did a couple books, and one of them was The Great Book of Journaling. And my work in the world is around, as you can see, I'm the director of the International Association for Journal Writing, and we're an inspirational and educational community for journal writers worldwide, a membership community, which I love. And the other publisher we're with together that she mentioned, Books That Save Lives. I just had a new book come out. It's got a lot of things in it because I've been doing book launch stuff and readings. It's called The Adoptee's Guide to Healing, Wholeness, and Growth. And it has over 200. It started out as a journal and became a book. It has over 200 journaling prompts in it to support adoptees, fellow adoptees, through their own reclaiming of their own story and remembering their own radiance. And as a registered social worker, I have, about 30 years of work in the burnout prevention space, burnout prevention and self-care, and the conditions under which it supports healthcare professionals, social workers, helpers, healers is something I'm really passionate about. I have a program, a new program I'm developing actually called Right to Restore, which is all about therapeutic journaling for preventing burnout. So everything I do is in the therapeutic writing space, transformational journaling, and I love it.
Well, anyone who knows me knows that journaling is a huge part of what I teach as well. And especially so your Goal Guide, which is my book that came out with the publisher that must not be named and is now with Turner. Your Goal Guide, it has it's all about figuring out the foundation for your goals, but it is based through journaling and a practice that I didn't realize was as imprinted in me, one that I started, as a kid, but also in a high school and creative writing class. You had to journal, and you can't figure things out in your head. We try. Actually, Katelyn might have something sciencey on this, right? But when you get things out of your head, you're able to figure things out. You're able to process, but also create plans, which is my specialty. So even before we met, when I knew what you did, I was so excited. And this is when we met years like at least 5 years ago. Anyway, glad that you're here. Beth, you're so patient. Welcome.
Thank you. I am Beth Ricanati. I am a physician. I'm an internist by training, and I am passionate about lifestyle modification, which has now resulted in my second book being published tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this. But the backstory is, and I wish I had known the other two wonderful panelists back in the day, because about 18 years ago, when I was burned out as a physician with 3 small children, I was fortunate enough to make challah, the braided bread that we have at holidays and on Friday nights. I'd never made it before. I didn't actually know anybody made bread like that from scratch. And it changed my life because I stopped and I calmed down and I was present. And I felt so good about it that I kept doing it and ultimately wrote a memoir about it. And it was through the memoir that I was fortunate to meet Deb. And then after the book came out, I began conducting workshops around the country. And the coolest thing happened. I mean, the workshops were cool, but what was really cool was listening to and watching the participants and realizing that many of the same practices that had helped me were actually helping them. And I began to see a framework emerge. And that's what this next book is. I wanted to share the framework that seemed to resonate no matter with whom I was working. Young, old, East Coast, West Coast, Jewish, non-Jewish, men, women. I mean, it just doesn't matter. These things, these practices are universal. And actually one of them gets at what you both were talking about a minute ago when you were talking about journaling. So obviously you're not journaling when you're making challah, but you're putting your intention out into the universe. It's one of the first things we do at the beginning of making challah together. We talk about why we're there and what intention we're bringing to it. And just as you said, Deb, like you have to say it out loud. And in your case, you're writing it down, and I'm trying to get people to speak it. But you're right. This is not we can't solve it in between our ears, so to speak. We have to get it out there. And it's a habit you practice.
And do you still doctor?
I volunteer 1 day a week at a clinic here in Los Angeles, but I am not a full-time physician anymore. No, because I pivoted. I guess that's the quick way of saying it. The book, the first book took me in a direction I had no idea it was going to take me in, and I love it. And I'm really, I guess you could say I took my clinic into the kitchen, and then I'm now taking it out of the kitchen with what I've learned in the kitchen. So I practice, I feel like, in a different way now. The second book has lots of lifestyle medicine in it. And anytime I can talk to somebody about stress management and heart disease and exercise and sleep and all these good habits, you know, but seriously, chronic disease is 75 to 80% lifestyle driven. That's a shocking number. On the other hand, like, how cool is that? There's so much we can do, and there are habits we can incorporate right into our daily life that can have material impact on our health. I could talk about that all day.
As could probably everybody on this panel, which is why we're here talking about habits. But it's I feel like, and this is why I love the topic, it's very easy to get into ruts. It's very easy to do the same thing. And is this not the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting different results? And I believe that a habits, which is our umbrella today, that's how we change things. So this is what I am positing, but I feel like we need to define a habit. So Katelyn, you want to start us off with the way you define habits?
Most likely patterns that can be conscious or unconscious that we do on a repeated basis. I'll just end there. Shortest version possible.
I love it. Anything to add to that one, Lynda?
I like to think of habits, just how I frame them for myself, or the things that I do regularly to really know and grow and care for myself. What are those things that I routinely show up for because I know that they have benefit? And of course we can put some sort of value on a habit. It's a good habit, it's a bad habit, entrenched habits, hard to break habits. We have so much language around habits. But when I'm trying to decide which ones I want to form, I come back to that simple definition of a habit for myself. Is this something that's going to help me either know, grow, or care for myself in a way that makes a difference? And then I go down that track.
Great. I love the positive spin. And what about you, Beth? How do you define it?
I want to actually take what Lynda just said and take it a little further, in that habits can be entrenched, good or bad, however we define them, as Katelyn also said. But what's really cool is that with the idea of neuroplasticity, right, we can change and we can grow. And so I really believe that whatever your habit is, your practice, your you always brush your teeth with your left hand, we can give a lot of examples. You can change them and you can modify them. And when you learn new ways that are healthy, you can adapt them. And it can take, it's not necessarily easy. It's not a slam dunk. And I like to use the example of, it can take 28 days at least to change a behavior. And I like to say it wasn't until I'd made, 28 days worth of challah that it was like, I'm going to be making challah now. Like, this is not something it's not a habit that I'm going to forget about tomorrow, kind of thing.
Now, I did mention that anything goes except for gloom and doom, but I feel like we should first address the bad ones before we can give the solutions. So where did these bad habits come from? I feel like this is a softball. Lynda?
Well, I guess with a bad habit, it's a subjective term. There are some universal bad habits. We know it's not a great idea to smoke cigarettes or overindulge in alcohol or, be very sedentary. There are certain things that are pretty clear that aren't the healthiest of habits to have. But I think when we get into language like bad habits, it can really create a shame response and cause people to maybe feel embarrassed, and which doesn't necessarily inspire any of us to make the changes that we can make. So um, I like to just, I know the question is around, starting with bad habits and so forth, but I think that is a very subjective term. And I'll leave it at that. Just the language around habits matters. Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Beth, and then Katelyn?
I love that you talk about how it's subjective, Lynda, because I think sometimes part of the problem is that we don't acknowledge that or really realize that. And so you're right, obviously, smoking. Okay, that's a bad habit. But many things are not necessarily bad for one person that may not be good for another. So I think it's really important to understand that and to know why it is you're doing what you're doing, or you think the way you think, so that you can actually then either continue with the habit or, honestly, quite frankly, change the habit.
Okay. Anything to add, Katelyn, before I make a U-turn out of this rabbit hole I probably should not have driven into?
No, I do have stuff to add because I warned you about the cognitive science. So here we go. I'm going to geek out for just a moment.
Please.
Which is that throughout our lives, and especially any time that we are feeling unsafe or in a high stress place, we seek things that give us comfort. And those things that we grab onto may have been something that served us at some point, but they don't serve us now. But throughout our lives, as we go through these stepped tiers of who we were to who we are, we develop coping strategies. And those coping strategies, even the same coping strategy, could be both healthy and unhealthy. Is it healthy that I sit down every Friday night with my kids and watch 2 episodes of a show together? Yeah. Would it be healthy if every night I binge watched that show as a way to escape from a feeling of overwhelm? So our habits, I think, are heavily contributed to what makes us feel good in the moment. What is our coping strategy, and how does that change in terms of where our stress level is and how ratcheted up that is? And then again, looking at that question of, just because it served us once, is it still serving us now?
Okay. So everything is subjective, and it depends. It's not only subjective, but it depends on the situation. It's situational and subjective. Okay.
Is it serving you now?
Is it serving?
It's a great point, Katelyn. Yeah.
And that it's not one size fits all.
Right.
Not even for ourselves. Like you were just saying, Katelyn, something that might have been a healthy habit at one point can turn at some point along the way where it might, be less so, depending on our circumstances. So I think it's important to have a lot of grace with ourselves when we're trying to make new habits. It's because we don't have to say, well, that wasn't a good one then, but I'm making a choice now to move in a new direction, create a new habit.
Yeah.
Well, and all coping strategies come from somewhere. There should not be self-recrimination in this was the easiest thing for me to grab onto at the time. The only self-recrimination comes when I knew that was a growth opportunity. I had the moment to take it, but I'm choosing repeatedly not to. Okay, well then maybe you should poke yourself a little bit and see if you can't get yourself fired up to do something. But there's no blame here. It's what we need and what we grab onto to cope in the moment.
It's really interesting. So last week's GoalChat was on writing and productivity. And one of the points that we talked about toward the end of the conversation was one of the killers of productivity is doing things that no longer serve you, which also falls very strongly in the habit category. So why don't I'm driving the bus and I'm making a left turn. How do people, and this was alluded to before, but what is the best way to create new habits? Does it start with the light bulb, I need it, or does it start with the doing, or what? So what is the first step? Well, I'll make it into a question. What is the first step for creating a new habit? And why don't you start this one, Katelyn?
I would go back to that questioning of what do you have that is serving you now? And where do you want to get that the habits you currently have in place won't get you to? So where is my goal? Where do I want to be? And what I'm doing is what I'm doing. See, now I'm having this sentence issues.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is what I'm doing now likely to get me there? And then there's the question, and I think this is a huge question that we forget to ask ourselves, which is not just what can I start doing, but what can I stop doing?
Okay, what is the goal? What can I start doing, and what can I stop doing?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. Beth?
I think sometimes it's a bit of a chicken and an egg, meaning, the first time I made challah, it wasn't because I actually had the forethought ahead of time that I'm stressed out, I'm burned out, I've got to figure out what's going to serve me in this moment so that I feel better, etc. I had none of that. In that case, I made challah and it was transformational. So I came at it from a different perspective. So sometimes I think it's we can come at it from a sort of front of our feet and sometimes from sort of back of our feet. Like I'll see a patient in clinic and we'll talk about something that they're going to need to do if their sugar's out of control, or we're thinking ahead, like what isn't working now, what's not serving them now. Let's talk about what we can do. On the other hand, maybe, as in my case, I started making the bread and lo and behold, I felt better. And then I kept doing it and it became a habit. So I do think it's a bit tricky. I don't think there's one answer, Deb, because I think it depends.
Well, I hope not. There are 3 of you. I would not want it to be one. Sorry.
True.
Okay, but chicken and egg. But so is the first step in changing a habit just doing something? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying actually sometimes yes, and sometimes you do it because you think ahead of time. Like, okay, like my sugar's high, I'm going to have to do something different. And then so there's more intention, right? And other times, as you know, going back to the bread again, sorry, I
never apologize for talking about food on my show.
And I love challah, but there was no forethought, no intention, and no recognition that this might be a habit. It came after. It came with the realization after. So I not only is there not one answer, I think, but I can't even give you a clear answer, Deb, because I can see it from both.
But didn't someone say, why don't you try baking challah?
But not because I was stressed out. They said, oh, it's the Jewish New Year. What are you doing? I was like, I'm trying to get out the door in the morning with 3 little kids, and I'll be lucky if I can do that. And they said, you should make challah. Like, add one more thing to my plate right now when I can't handle any, you know what I mean? I was like, no. But we kept talking and it really sounded so fun and easy. She made it sound so accessible that I did try it. But she didn't suggest it because it was to help with the situation.
It was just like out of thin air, why don't you try this thing?
Right. For the holiday. Nothing to do with to do with everything that I have since come to find so beneficial.
Okay, so it was literally a suggestion with no agenda.
Exactly.
Okay.
And became a habit. Which is different than saying, you need to quit smoking and you have to change that habit. It's not serving you anymore.
Okay, so. Lynda, what do you think?
It's enjoyable hearing Katelyn and Beth share their responses, and of course our ideas generate other ideas. And I was thinking as Beth was sharing about the difference between setting an intentional habit and an accidental habit. One that might just sort of come because we've kept doing it, and oh, now that's a habit. Like I think of my journaling habit. I didn't set out to say, oh, I'd like to create a journaling habit. I just wrote regularly, and over time it's become a habit. Like I would have to work hard to change it and not do it anymore because it's so just built into my daily life. I have my morning coffee, I journal, I rub my dog's belly. I think about, as a mom, I have sons who are 21 and 19, and I think about how much I learned about the importance of habits as a mother raising them, that it was like, well, what habits or what routines really will serve our family well? And inside of those routines, like, when you're having dinner and what's a bedtime routine and all those habits, we didn't have to think, oh, well, now we have to get them to brush our teeth. It was just, here was the order. They had their bath, they brushed their teeth, we did their story, they went to sleep. And inside of that, I also learned it was important to have novelty, to disrupt sometimes the patterns or habits that we might have, to keep things fresh, to see the contrast, see like, okay, it's a good idea to go back to that habit pathway, or, oh, we could mix this up a bit and create a new habit. And so it's interesting, like starting them, I think, can come from a very intentional place. Like, I want something to be different in my life. One of the things I'll do when I want to evaluate what new habits I want, which I often do in the pages of my journal, is to say, well, what would my future self thank me for? Like, what's something different I could do in my life right now that my future health would thank me for, my future happiness would thank me for? And just listen without judgment, just get curious what new habits might want to come along. And some of them are very inner generated, very internally motivated, but some are external. So right now I've been, for example, waffling with my A1C, kind of in and out of the type 2 diabetic zone. So I'm very motivated. I'm very motivated to make some new habits with my diet, for example, and intermittent fasting and different things I'm trying to create habits with in service to my health. I might not have thought about creating those habits or even knowing what they were to create if that health matter wasn't kind of forefront. And now I'm trying to, I've always ate pretty healthy. I exercise regularly, but it hasn't been enough. There's quite a bit of diabetes in my biological family. And like Beth said, a great majority of our health is lifestyle and things that are in our control. So I just think habits are like, when we say, how do we start a habit? It's like, well, they might start us because, they need to, or we might be really controlling them. And I think there's a difference between internally motivated habits and external ones that are given to us, because that locus of control is in a different place. That doesn't mean one's more valuable than the other. It just means we might have to work a little harder to form the habits that are being, suggested to us, if you will.
So we've got a few people watching in real time. So I want to say hi to Meryl and Lisa and Leslie. And if I missed your name in the call, I'm very sorry. And Leslie just chimed in. Research shows we don't change our habits. We actually create new ones that just have more weight than the old ones. And the old ones never leave. They just get quieter. I think that makes sense. Right? My big thing with, I'm going to do air quote habits. So as someone who talks about goals a lot and productivity a lot, there are a lot of people, and even in pop culture, that say you can't break the chain. You have to do the thing every single day. I have something I call the 5 of 7 rule, which gives you a cheat of 1 or 2 days a week, knowing that sometimes you might just get too busy to do the thing, to work on your goals, to, like I said, to do it consistently. But if you recognize how many days a week you can do a particular thing, then it is still keeping the habit. It's just you're doing it on your own terms. Yes? No? Does it still count?
I think it absolutely can count, Deb, but I think you have to have the habit in place. So for example, let's say I tell you that you need to walk 10,000 steps a day. If you walk 10,000 steps a day for 5 days in a row and you miss the 6th, you may not come back on the 7th. But if you've walked 10,000 steps a day for at least a month and then you miss a day, yeah, you'll probably come back. So I think there's a temporal relevance to what you're suggesting. And then with that said, absolutely, once you have your habit in place, yeah, I think to be so rigid about it that it has to be 7 days a week or bust is not always sustainable at all. And it absolutely makes sense to say, oh gosh, if I can do that 5 days a week, that's a home run for sure.
I think it's very amusing you use that example because in August, I got really obsessed with walking. And well, okay, prior to August, I was saying I have to do 5,500 a day because that's realistic for me and it's more than half. But then I accidentally walked 10,000 steps the first 2 days of August, so I kept going. But by that weekend, I was so burnt out that I needed to take fewer steps. So my rule is a certain number of steps a month that averages out to 7,500 a day. Because that way I don't drive myself crazy on days I can't do it.
I like that, Deb.
I always have a workaround.
I think that's an important caveat. Not to, it's important that we give ourselves grace.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it, Katelyn.
And it's easy to fall into like a guilt trap or a defeatist trap, I think, especially when you're starting off a new hobby. So Beth, I loved what you said about, especially if you can get through the first 30 days, then it matters a little bit less if there was one day that slipped. And at the same time, I certainly also see where people start off in a habit and then they miss multiple days in a row. And it's like, well, this isn't going to work anyway. Yeah. So that grace is... I'll use your word. Still needs to be braided in.
I like it.
Okay.
I'm in this program called Lifestyle RX. I live in Canada, in British Columbia, and there's a publicly funded health program that helps with any kind of metabolic health issues. And so I'm in it around what I just described before. And their mantra is better, not perfect. That we're trying to make choices that we might not make them all, but the effort is, in the thing and doing it as consistently as we can. It's aligned with what you were just saying, Deb. And I think about our fellow co-author and friend, Eric Maisel, who has over 60 books, actually 70 now. He has 11 coming out this year. He's a fabulous human being. And he has.
How does one do that?
Deb knows Eric. Well, this is where
speaking of defeatist, I thought we were going to go somewhere.
I'm gonna answer that question because it's relevant to habits. One of the books that he wrote is The Power of Daily Practice. And he really believes that you put the most important things first thing. So if you're writing a book, work on that book first thing in the morning before you've done anything else. And no matter what happens with the rest of the day, you've already done that thing that's important, that habit that matters to you. And that is how he's written 70 books. And I've worked with him for over a decade, and every morning he writes. And so our habits reinforce themselves, showing up to them. And he says, if you miss, it's kind of aligned with what we were just saying, if you miss one day of your book, it probably won't get away from you. But if you miss the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, you might as well forget it. So there is like something about how many misses we can have until we actually need to start again, or, where we've not quite on the habit pathway, shall we say.
I have a cheat for that too, which is
This is the chat on how to bypass habits. We're going to rename this.
Apparently.
This is how we make a comprehensive picture. I don't know.
See, I believe, and this is as well as you all know, as some of the people who tune in. So I am Deb. I write books on goals, but my business is helping people write book proposals and get book deals. But during the time where the primary of my business was freelance project management, this was the cheat. Most of my clients were working on passion projects. And I would say you need to be thinking about your projects every day. But if all you do is think, then that is cheating. You need to assign 2, 3, 4, 5 days of work a week, even if it's a few minutes, to work towards it. Because if it's still living in your head, it's never going to leave. So that is the cheat, non-cheat way to look at things. I have, since we're going there, have any or all of you fallen off the habit wagon, and how did you get back on? Lynda?
Yes.
You were smiling, so I feel like you're like, should I tell? Okay.
Well, I think we all fall off the habit wagon. Even the most faithful, I have friends who are runners and marathon runners, and they run and run and run. And, we all have those times where even the most devotional path we have towards something has things that interrupt it, an illness, an unexpected crisis, we're too tired, something else becomes more important. Whatever it might be, there's all kinds of things that can derail us. And some of them we can't control. I think of times when I've been on a good momentum, and I've had my dad passed away with Alzheimer's a number of years ago, and my mom has advanced Alzheimer's now. And I think of, or as parents, or the business owners, I think of all the times I've been like in great stride with a new habit, my regular fitness or whatever it is. And then there's some not a curveball, there's a crisis. And it just, all of a sudden, that's where the energy goes. That's where it's needed. You have to get on a plane, go across the country, whatever it is. And so, when those things interrupt my best intentions or the habits, I just say, well, that's what was there and I had to deal with it. But when it's of my own making, like drinking less wine, for example, and breaking that summer habit of going out at the end of the day, sitting in with the flowers in the garden with my husband, it's like that habit is, like we're always negotiating. It's like, okay, we won't have any wine during the week, just on Friday on our date night. And mostly we'll do that. But every now and then it's like really sunny and we're going to go plunge in the ocean. It's like, well, it's Wednesday. We could just like have one glass on Wednesday and we don't have a drinking problem. It might sound like it, but it's a habit. It's just that habit of what are the things that trigger relaxation, end of the day, and then when you're trying to change those, it's really easy to derail. You can only drink so many, well, you can drink as many as you want. Bubbly waters, which is our go-to now. So yes, I think any of us have been derailed, and sometimes there's very good reasons from it. And sometimes it's just, I remember reading that when they tried to reroute the Mississippi River after like years and, thousands of people working on this, the river went back to where it was before. And, things want to go back to the pathways that are familiar, including our own behaviors. And I remember reading once that behavior will trump knowledge 11 times out of 10. In other words, we can know all the things, but that doesn't mean our behavior can always be in alignment with what we know. And hence why habit building, getting back on track when we, fall off our habits is part of our daily lives as human beings. I think it's just the way it is.
Okay,
that's what I think.
Yeah.
Beth is laughing. I feel she's got a confession.
Well, I feel this. I just feel this sort of viscerally. It's one thing to know, right? And it's such another thing to actually our behavior. And I love that expression, Lynn, 11 out of 10. I mean, it's so true. And I also really agree with this idea that it's different depending on if it is an external or an internal trigger. You know, you can find out you can be a smoker and find out you have cancer, and you probably are going to quit maybe a lot faster. But if it's just that, you know, you like to have the donuts that are out in the common, you know, in the kitchen at work and by the coffee maker, like that's on you to change, and that's harder. Maybe not. But it's a different stimulus, and I think understanding that can be helpful.
Do you have something to add, Katelyn?
I'm a weird one on this one. If the 13 years as an ER nurse didn't already tell you that I'm a little bit ADD, then I'll just flat out confess it right now. And so, keeping habits in my life would need to therefore have a life in which I'm not constantly changing things on a moment to moment basis. You know, I have one of those craft rooms that has 62 different things because I pick it up and I do them for 2 weeks and then I go on to something new. So in my weird little world, I guess habits are like less like rules and more like suggestions. And so when I look at habit building, and this might pivot us to a different place, when I look at habit building, my focus tends to be more on the how do I remove as many barriers as possible to the behavior that I want. So I do my workout because I've been banned from doing any kind of impact exercise. I do my workout in the pool, which means that when I get up in the morning, if I have the option, I do not put on clothes. I put on a swimsuit and a bathrobe because if I'm walking around the house like that, I'm that much closer to tipping myself into the water and actually going through my exercise program, because otherwise I'm going to look really weird when I go grocery shopping. So my focus tends to be less on how do I, you know, keep from falling off the wagon, and more about how many barriers can I remove between me and the behavior that I want to see myself adhering to.
Yeah.
I think that's so smart. If that were my method of exercise, I would also be wearing a bathing suit every day. Unfortunately, I don't have a pool, so I would be looking really silly.
But it's such a fun idea. Just get up and put on a bathing suit. Like, love it.
Yeah, well, I will give you all a moment to think about your favorite habit. So my current favorite habit is I go walking at the end of the day. So between my work day, air quotes, right, and I write at night. So I like to do the things for my clients and other people during the day. And then my quiet time on the weekends and the evenings, I work on Deb stuff. So I use that as my break, is my walk around the neighborhood, which is great. Except my co-author on active grandparenting, she's like, Deb, you should get up and walk first thing in the morning, which is amazing, except I shower at night, and this way I can get started with my work first thing. So I'm on the weekends I do, but during the week when people have to see me, I like to, I shower at night, I get up in the morning, I am Deb on, usually I've got several Zooms a day. And then at the end of the day, that is the way that I transition from work Deb into whichever version of me is the one that comes out after dinner. But my other favorite habit is cooking, but it's so freaking hot. I don't wanna. So it's almost like I know it's a favorite habit, but in the summer, I'm going to cook in as little time as humanly possible on every given day. But that habit is going to be waiting for me when the weather starts behaving. So it's almost like I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it as much. Wow. I feel like it's a habit therapy. Okay. What is everybody's favorite habit and why? Beth? And you can't use challah. We know it's your favorite habit. And Lynda, you can't use journaling.
She just grabbed that rug and pulled it right out from under.
No.
And Lynda, you can't use journaling. So I'm making you guys do 2 because the first one's
Yeah.
obvious.
No, we started during COVID when our mornings got completely upended and we didn't have to get up and take the kids to school bright and early. We started having a cup of coffee together with the dog. And it's become a habit, a ritual, a practice that just sets the day for me in the most marvelous way. I just hold on to it as still.
A nice, relaxing family cup of coffee. It's amazing.
Right? But I feel like it's a habit now. Like it's very centering and grounding. And
Okay, well, even though I think your kids are older now, but I'm
okay, no, it's not with them. Sorry, I should have clarified. My husband and I.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
nothing to do with them.
But
they are older, by the way. But yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What about you, Lynda? Did you think of yours?
Yeah, I have lots of them. And one of them is the same as yours, Beth. My honey and I, we've been married 22 years on September 11th. And every single day of our lives together, we have shared morning coffee. Even if I'm away, I've had like travel for work and such, we'll virtually have a cup of coffee together. And it's just, as you say, very grounding. It's an easy habit to keep. We miss it if we miss it. And but a newer habit is Aquafit, Katelyn. we have a local pool, and my honey has never had a fitness routine, but he's always been active. And he decided to pick one thing. And he picked Aquafit, and he goes 3 mornings a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 o'clock, and I go with him once or twice a week. And he will, even if he has to, like, we live on an island, he has to catch a ferry, he will position the timing so he can get to his Aquafit class. He just really committed to it. And it's been amazing to see the impact of picking that one thing and doing it and making it a non-negotiable. It doesn't mean, every now and then there's something that makes it different, but he really positions around it. And so do I, to go with him. It's been great. And I have a daily walking habit that I don't miss. Rain, shine, snow, high winds. Well, I'm outside walking every day in nature.
Nice. Katelyn?
Well, you already heard one, which was the pool, though I should tell you that it's not nearly so appealing to throw on that bathing suit and that robe when it's 20 degrees outside and go outside to that pool.
You do
outside.
But you do this even in the cold weather?
I do.
Okay.
Wow.
So now I give myself grace in that my ruling for this is I go every other day. I don't do it every day. I get some mornings where I just get to get up, get dressed, and go out to what I'm doing, and not get up early and go outside in the snow or whatever. But it's been fantastic, and I also piggyback on you guys. I take a cup of tea or a cup of coffee out on the porch if my husband's home. He's invited to join me, and we sit on the porch with pets. Usually join in at this point in time as well. They're used to the ritual. So that is one. And since we're just building on each other right and left, I'll throw one other new one in, which is just another good hack that I think, which is sometimes I've found that the best way to get a new habit in place is to put it on the calendar. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've all done this as well. I can't remember where I read it originally, that it's like we live and die by this thing. So sometimes, it doesn't happen without it. And it feels a little weird to write bath in a book on the calendar or call a friend or something else that is for our own mental well-being. But I swear for months we're like, we need to eat more vegetables in this house. We need to eat more vegetables in this house. And finally we just put on the calendar, make smoothies Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we wrote on the grocery list, buy smoothie ingredients, and 3 to 5 months of uplead, and nothing happened until we actually wrote it down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so insight. I was just about to ask what goal you want to gift Is that going to be it, Caitlin, or do you have another
That
one?
would be a good goal to gift, is right, and it is one I have gifted when I'm teaching, new grad nurses and physicians and other folks, indeed, on the topics that we discussed that we're all interested in at the beginning of that wellness and burnout prevention. Is write it on the calendar once a week. Pick something that is about refilling your bucket and put it on the calendar and watch how much easier that makes it to do.
I actually have dance break on my calendar every day. I don't, right? Exactly. Well, so it's kind of been replaced because I started listening to music while I'm walking, but I still have that reminder. And if I haven't stepped away from the computer in a while, it's like walk around, hey, Alexa, play something and shake out the day. So yes, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. So put the habits that you want to enforce on the calendar. Lynda, what goal are you gifting?
I think being part of community. We don't have to do all of the things alone. We just talked about like morning coffee or tea rituals in our journaling community. People come together for these guided journaling experiences, and it helps them build that journaling habit. Going to Aquafit, there's other people getting in the pool. I walk with my girlfriend. In other words, to find a buddy system, find community, even just one other person that is engaged in that habit as well, and it can really help create that sense of support, and you're not alone, and it can make it more fun, and you can support each other.
That's good. And I will, but I will also add, so for those who are still on Facebook, I know not everybody is, but I have got the Write On Online community. And basically at the beginning of the week, it's what are your networking goals for the week on Monday, and what are your goals for the week on Tuesday. And then Thursday is Toot Your Horn Thursday. So you can either share your goal, share your win, or usually people do one or the other. Rarely do they do both, but it is an alternative to the buddy, because we're all your buddy. There you go. Okay, Beth, goal.
Say your intention out loud. Don't think it.
We're gonna say that.
Say it out loud.
It's good.
I think it's really good. I think it's really actually. I think it's really easy to think something. But when you think it and it stays between your ears, it just can kind of go round and round and round, right? I think we have to say things out loud. And then I'm always amazed at what happens when you put your intentions out into the world. So it's such a simple thing. Just say it and watch what happens.
So is this like I intend to walk every day, or is it related to goals, or basically what you want? Is it affirmational, or is it habit?
All of the above. It can be.
Habitual is the wrong word.
No, I think it can be from the sublime to the ridiculous, right? Like when I make challah, okay, I'm beating it, but when I make challah, I set an intention, like I'm making this challah for somebody. I said, why am I here? Why did I stop and carve out time on a Friday to make the bread? Okay, that's one way of setting an intention. No, tomorrow's my book launch. I'm setting an intention about it. So they can be big things, they can be small things. We have 3 children. I'm constantly thinking about intentions sort of around them and what's going on with them. So yes, to answer your question, Deb, it is an all of the above answer.
Okay, well, I'm big on the intentions, because the Deb method starts with determine your mission. You can't get what you want unless you know what that is. And it's all going back to the tapes in your head. Yeah. First of all, you can go nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, raise your hand if you've had monkey mind within the last 24 or 12 hours, right? Lynda didn't raise her hand, so she's journaling. She's putting her.
I put it all down. I've got all my monkey mind is just like
on paper, right?
She's converted hers.
Yeah.
But when you say things out loud, when you figure,
Yeah.
and even people who say, I don't do goals. Okay, what do you do? Well, I have intentions. Guess what? Those are goals.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. Words matter, right? But when you go,
Yeah.
it goes back to the if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So think about what it is you want to put out into the world. What is your mission? What in the way that it goes out into the world might be a little bit different, or the way it comes back to you may be a little bit different, but the intention for sharing knowledge. So why I do this show, it's I get to bring people together. I get to learn stuff, and my community gets to learn stuff too. What? Like, best part of my week, right?
We win.
Exactly. So the intention is to connect good people with each other, but also to share knowledge that you don't know who needs to hear it. That's why I help people get book deals, because most likely the person who needs to read your book is not someone you know. It can also be someone you know, but the people need to discover your words. So that's what drives me with everything that I do. It's to help people get their voices out there so others can benefit. So my intention is to impact as many people as possible, but I do it in a lot of different ways, right? So your intention is to get people journaling, and Katelyn's intention is to get people to be less stressed so they can be more productive in their lives. Did I paraphrase you well enough, Katelyn?
Since we can't really use deflate the blowfish strongly out of context, yes, you did.
Excellent. And Beth, your mission is to tell people the magic of doing something with your hands, this routine, this ritual, no matter what your background or religion. So everybody in this conversation, most of the people in my world, they've got a mission, because when you've got a mission, that's fuel behind getting your message out there. And the habit, yes, I'm going to pull it back to habits, is being out there, sharing what you know, sharing what you love. It is like one of the most important habits, because your voice needs to be heard, your knowledge. Anyway, friends, this has been great. Where can people learn more about you? And Katelyn, I will go to you first, and you can also mention your TEDx, since you kind of spoilered it. And I'm so glad you did.
So yeah, KatelynCarey.com, KatelynCarey. I of course am also on LinkedIn, and yes, I have 2 TEDx talks out there. The first one is on one of my soapboxes, which is empathy versus compassion, and why there's a difference, and why, especially for healthcare providers, that difference matters. That title is The Problem with Empathy. And the second talk was The Secret to De-escalating Angry People, Managing the Human Blowfish. And it is a little bit more on the science of stress, helping to manage other people's blowfish responses and helping to control our own blowfish responses.
I love it. Oh, so much. But you know this. Okay. Lynda, where can people learn more about you?
Well, I have a couple websites: the International Association for Journal Writing, IAJW.org, and my speaker author site is lindamonk.com. And I just started a new YouTube channel, which I'm really excited about. I'm committed to a YouTube video a week for the next year, starting this week. So you can find me youtube.com/Lynda Monk, and it'll be all things journaling, and journaling, for our lives, journaling for burnout prevention, journaling to live well, all the good things, applied journaling. Yeah,
amazing.
I'm really excited about it.
And
come and subscribe.
And Beth, where can people learn more about you?
They can learn more about me on my website, which is my name, Beth Ricanati, RICANATIMD.com. On Instagram, same handle, Beth Ricanati MD. On LinkedIn, my name. And on Substack, which is also Beth Ricanati MD.
Amazing. And I am at the Deb Method everywhere. And if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you will get the replay, the recap, the goals, and also the links to everybody's website and LinkedIn. So connect with one of us, connect with all of us. You can't reach your goals. You need your people. So we all get to be, again, each other's people. If you want to learn more about what I do, you can also learn more about me at thebookproposalexpert.com. Or you need some help with your goals, grab a copy of your goal guide and or 52 secrets for goal setting and goal getting at your favorite place to buy books. Okay, friends, final thought time. Lynda, final thought?
Well, what's coming to me in this moment is that what we focus on grows. And it's really important to have some good self-talk when we're creating new habits. Just messages like simple things. I can do this. I can make changes. I've got my own back. Just really be our own allies when we're making change and put our attention where we're heading.
I love that. Because it goes back to when you think you can or you think you can't. You're right. So be your own best cheerleader.
Be that positive self-compassionate self-talk, because we can be really hard on ourselves, especially when we're trying to make change, and just have that I was talking about this with my son on a walk today, that our energy shapes so much. If we say we're going to, that things are going to work out, or things are going to be okay for me, like we energize that. So really, really put our energy and our words in the direction we want things to go.
Okay. Love that. Because the universe, it does listen. Mm-hmm. Beth, final thought?
Yeah, I think that it's really important for all of us to remember that small acts, small habits can have a really big impact on our life, on our well-being every single day. This isn't some esoteric, like I need a new habit down the line. Today, you can do something today and do it again tomorrow, little, and have a really big impact.
Because that's how you build a habit, is by doing the things consistently. And they don't have to be huge. It starts with the decision, right? And then you have to do the thing. Okay, Katelyn, you get our final thought.
Oh my gosh.
All right. I know, the pressure.
Unconscious, unplanned habits come from coping strategies most often, where we're just trying to do something to make ourselves feel better. We're trying to do something that maybe was just built in that we never thought about at all. But the best habits are those that bring us happiness. And we can look at any of the patterns that we have in our lives and say, is this something that brings me happiness, or is it not? And I will just reinforce, Lynda, you said, be your own best cheerleader. Talk to yourself as you go through these things the way that you would like your friend to talk to you, the way that you as a friend would talk to somebody else, because we're not always good about being our own friends. And Beth, those little micro steps, it doesn't have to be big changes. It doesn't have to be everything all at once. One tiny little thing that says, this would make me happier if I started doing or I stopped doing. And then we just practice until we get there.
I think that's like a bonus goal. If at least one of your habits is not bringing you happiness, then watch this show over and over again until you come up with something. Because when we have joy, that can change it changes your attitude, it changes your approach. So please make sure you're never supposed to use the word should, but I'm going to. You should have at least one habit that's bringing you joy. Think of the things that you love and do something you love at least a little bit every day, and see how that habit impacts the rest of your life. There you go. Thank you again. Thank you again, Katelyn, Lynda, and Beth for joining me. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching live, the replay, or listening to us as GoalChat on the Marketing Podcast Network. You're here. You want to achieve those goals. You want better habits to get there. So go on out there, go for it. The decision to be here, to make the change, that is the first step. Go for it because we know you can do it.